Hey, there you are. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or whatever time of day you're finding yourself watching this video. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. Welcome to the Daily Medicine Transmission for the 5th of January, 2022. Welcome back, everyone. The chat is blowing up in Telegram for as much as it's a small little contained community. It got way more active the minute that I told made the declaration and the resolution to basically leave Facebook. So there's a lot more activity happening over there, and I'm really enjoying it. So I appreciate all of the comments and the interaction. And if I haven't responded to you directly yet or have jumped into the conversation, it's coming. It's all about time management, just about with anything in life, and certainly when you are in charge of your own personal economy and your own time and space. You do have to have some really strong time management skills because you don't have any kind of outside structure that's doing it for you. And boy, isn't Venus in retrograde in Capricorn really bringing that kind of stuff right to the surface for all of us, huh? So welcome if you're new to this channel. Thank you for stopping by. And I like to remind people that when you do interact with this content by subscribing, you like the video, you share, you comment, it actually does make a positive impact on this message being recommended to a larger audience. And I've had some very successful interactions with clients who are now my friends and my regular consistent viewing audience that have found this content quite randomly through the algorithm of certain channels, or certain platforms. So thank you. It really does have an impact, and it's not just me, like begging for likes and views. It really does actually allow for these messages to get out to a wider audience. So the magic is in the process, guys. It's not the end goal. It is not something to be striving towards necessarily. It's in the process of unfolding with the matrix of reality. It's not so much in the outcome, but the outcome is great motivation, right? So the Lyran activations are going so strong right now, and that's a big lesson or a pretty distinct signature of the Lyran starseed set of traits. Is the magic is in the process itself, and that is what Lyran starseeds really enjoy the most, is the process of the unfolding. And this is why they seem to be unstoppable in whatever they set their mind to. Lyran starseeds are the type of people that, and I say this a lot in the actual starseed readings, this is how I describe it, but Lyran starseeds are the type of people that will sell everything they own and buy a sailboat and sail around the world and not have any real sailing experience, but they will endeavor to learn everything they can. A Lyran starseed is going to be the type of person that, went to a foreign country as an exchange student before they could speak the language and came back being totally fluent in that language. That was my freshman year college roommate, a remarkable, smart individual, so kind and just so delightful, and that's exactly what she did. She didn't know any Spanish at all, and as a high school student, she went spent a year with an Argentinian family, and then I would often hear her have conversations with that family on the phone on a regular basis, not speaking a lick of Spanish when she went. So Lyran starseeds have a resonance of such ancient origins in this universe, not let alone this galaxy, but just everywhere, that they have the leadership capacity that is naturally ingrained in them. So the activations are really strong when Venus and the sun, sorry, I had to think about it for a second. When the Venus and sun come together in their conjunction on the 8th, this is a huge activation as well. This is a big part of the responsibility and the accelerated growth when we commit ourselves to taking responsibility for not just ourselves, but for how our magic and the process actually unfolds and makes an impact. So if you're a Lyran starseed, man, this is some good time for you to really reacquaint yourself, if you haven't already, with who, this part of who you are. And if you don't know, this is a great opportunity to maybe look into getting a starseed reading. I'm about to drop a report very soon. There's actually not going to be a transmission tomorrow, so I can prepare not only the horoscopes for the week, but also this report that's going to be very starseed focused. It's the Pleiadian revival. It's focusing on the transition of the nodal axis of the moon into Taurus and Scorpio. This is Pleiadian territory, but one of the things is that it's very connected to the Lyran aspect and the late Capricorn degrees, the late Capricorn galactic degrees in particular, 25, 26, 27, and even into 0 degrees Aquarius. These are all Pleiadian markings too. So there's going to be a very strong Pleiadian or strong starseed, report that's coming very soon. And there's going to be an offering around the starseed readings that's going to be available. So if you're interested and this is piquing your interest and you want to know more about what this all means and how this actually influences your mission as a person on Earth at this time of incredible transition and a massive cycle coming to an end and a new one beginning, just stay in touch, because there's going to be an offering that for the starseed readings. Especially, I know this time of year can be very tight with people financially. I am definitely feeling the squeeze. I am in serious trust mode right now that I am not going to be left hanging come springtime in terms of my own finances by taking some leaps of faith right now, because the momentum is too strong, right? We all are feeling that right now, and there is very strong, and to detract from that in any way seems really foolish. But sometimes you have to take that leap, right? It's time to jump, take that leap. And the Lyran starseeds, these are the individuals that are just naturally inclined to leap, don't know exactly where the leap is going to lead them or what's going to happen on the other side. That strong root chakra that is so reminiscent of the Lyran star will allow you to take the leap even at the risk of failure. And that's an interesting connection today with at least part of the reading is this idea of having to face failure, having to account for maybe some hasty decisions. The thing about Lyran starseeds I've noticed, of course being one and also working with people, is that there's risk involved. There's taking of a risk, as I explain those particular scenarios, right? This is why most people kind of back away, because there is a certain amount of risk that's involved, but they're calculated risks. They're not foolish risks. It's not foolhardy or hasty. It absolutely is well thought out and based on plenty of experience and observation in past situations, which is why there's likely a more willingness to engage in taking the leap, right? Because there have been so many prior experiences that can be reflected upon where that's actually worked. It's worked out. And I bet most people, especially if you're here and especially if you have starseed lineage and you know it, you have experience, you've done this, you've taken a leap before, and it's actually worked out, and it has strengthened your own faith in yourself and your connection to source, or however you identify the infinity of our creation in this universe. It has really helped, and not only helped, but strengthened your own intuition, your own discernment. And as we're going to see here, there is a real intense expansion of that, especially as the moon is going to transit into Pisces today. So we'll get all into that. There was a blackout with the Schumann resonance for like about 20 hours. And the sun is fairly quiet for the most part, but it is waking up. And from what I understand, just checking in with suspicious observers this morning, the sunspot maximum cycle is moving quicker than the data would suggest, which I think is very interesting in and of itself. So I'm going to check in over here with the chat, see what's going on. See, says I'm not watching here now, stupid YouTube. Yeah, I know. I mean, you should see, you'll see here the bots. I mean, it's just, I report them just now. It's just like habit, right? Of just cleaning them out of the chat. But this will be the last week, my friends, of streaming on YouTube. I would love, and I'm hoping to make the transition and my own leap over to Twitch, even though I've built a lot of familiarity with this platform and how it works. So the whole shifting and transitioning into a new platform is a little scary, but I feel like I've got a lot of the foundation already set. So if you're here on YouTube, especially if you're new on YouTube, just know that the transmissions and the streaming itself is going to be moving to Twitch very, very soon. And of course, there's going to be astrology still here. I'm going to still post the astrology reports and the astrology forecasts. But if you don't want to stream, but you still want the content of the stream, it's still going to be posted on BitChute. So you can go over there and use that platform. It doesn't have all the great amenities, I guess, if you subscribe to YouTube, like being able to download your content, being able to close a window, but it's actually getting better. You can tell that BitChute has done some work on their platform. So anyway, here we are. So it's good to see you, Emily. It sounds like that you're back on some sort of routine again. So that I get that sense from a lot of people right now. It was just like the new moon happened and the holiday weekend ended, and it was just hit the ground running in a good way. And part of that is Mercury coming into Aquarius. Man, that has been some really powerful experiences so far. And of course, if you have a lot of fixed energy in your chart, right? Aquarius, Scorpio, Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus, and Leo, right? If you have a lot of that fixed energy, of course, that's going to be impacting you a little bit more in number of ways. But even if you just have a lot of air in your chart or Aquarius, man, it was just like ping, right? It's just moving. Now, everybody's experience is different. And for some people, we're feeling like a lot of clarity and a lot of very singular type of mental functioning, I guess you could say. Like it's like a fog has seemed to have like either cleared, and not even that, it just seems to be moving now. But some people are, and this is why the chat on Telegram is so great, some people are having experiences that are way intense in the astral, right? Some people are just kind of their bodies are really going through a really strong process right now. So it's being experienced in a lot of different ways, but what seems to be really clear right now is that there is a big waves coming through, and they are impacting people in very different ways. And what I am seeing in the readings so far, at least in this week, now it's more obvious. You can see and feel, and you can even see the abstraction through the readings of a very distinct, I don't want to say it's a very distinct duality of experience. Like it's becoming very obvious. And so on the outside of things, there is a very strong wave of Saturn-oriented energy, and you'll see it in the reading, right? There is a sense of, oh, geez, I don't want to say failure, but I mean, with Venus especially having been at the degree very recently, as of yesterday, in accepting defeat gracefully, realizing what we're learning, there's a lot of resistance that is still coming through that. And you can see it in a lot of different areas where the failure aspect and the way we've participated in that it's a little bit harder for the collective in general, from what I can tell, to really accept this. So again, as a starseed, as a light worker, you'll see the energetic polarity be very different, and being very open and plugged in and open to receive some pretty substantial messaging at a divine level. So I'm excited to be able to share the reading with you. So we might as well just get right into that, because I don't have anything else necessarily to offer. But we have some astrology, of course, to talk about. We're going to talk about the fixed star Fomalhaut today. Jupiter is getting very close to conjunction with this. We'll talk about it in terms of the fixed star. We'll talk about it in terms of its connection to Archangel Gabriel, because it's one of the 4 royal fixed stars. You're going to see it in the reading. I mean, there's an interesting crossover. And then bringing up a very specific story that is is biblical, and I would be interested to see if it comes up in other mythological contexts. We're going to talk about the bruising of the heel, because what's interesting is Fomalhaut in medical astrology, and there's a whole branch of medical astrology, if you didn't know that, Fomalhaut as a fixed star is related to the right heel. And this is something that synchronistically has come up for me in my own personal around this story, and then the connection with Fomalhaut, the reading today. It's all coming together and is very much worth at least a discussion. And I'd love to blow it up on Telegram with people's perspectives, because this is pretty interesting. So let's see here. Paige, I haven't seen you in a long time, and Emily's in the flow. I'm totally feeling that. And I think Aquarius people are very much like in it right now. And the it for Aquarian rising people is the woo, like it is the second house for Aquarian people is the woo. It is the full range of experience of what is. That is the objective world. So when you're in the flow, like you are in the flow. And Mercury is certainly not hurting this situation either right now. So Paige, I haven't seen you in so long. I've been down and out with COVID for over a week. That explains it. I've been in my own world, yet learning so much about healing my body energetically through this experience. Oh, wow, Paige. Are you on Telegram? Are you on the chat? But now bedridden, I can. That is a strange and beautiful blessing, I suppose. Are you on Telegram at all? I can't remember if you are, because I am moving off of Facebook. And if you are on Telegram, I'd love to have a conversation with you that's come up with some other people, more like in DMs, but about I can help you too if you don't know how to do it. I was actually thinking about doing a little video about this, because some people are like, I don't comfortable in my groove of social media, but I understand that it's a transition is hard, and I'm about to do it as well, moving on to new platforms, but it seems like the way, because there is something about my experience with COVID too, before it ever was even COVID, and it's connected to my walk-in experience. It was connected to one of the most profound off-world experiences that I've had, and really like in my adult life that I've remembered, that was very related to getting COVID. So okay, yeah, get on Telegram, because we want to hear from you. Open up this conversation, because I think that the more that we can talk about these experiences, and other people who are on this chat or would be on this chat or on Telegram have had similar experiences, I think we should be talking about it, because the amount of energetics around contracting this virus, whatever it is, has been substantial. And there's another bot. Let's clear them out. Anyway, so let's, I'm going to get the bowl out now that we've had some time to really check in and start going through this process. Thank you, Paige, so much for sharing. And I am real bummed that you're bedridden. I mean, that sucks, and we've all been there, but the energetic experiences are so valuable, and I really want to like talk about it more directly, and maybe it'll inspire a report or a topic for one of the shows on stream when that Twitch on the stream on Twitch. So I'm getting ahead of myself, which is why I can't focus. Okay, so we're gonna bring up the reading, and then I'm gonna bring out the Tibetan bowl, and we're gonna have a grounding moment here. So let's bring this up, and so you can see right away that the 7 of discs, we have 2 more 7s that are corresponding, and they're actually in longitudinal like alignment with each other, which I think is interesting, and the unicorn. But what I will say here is 7 of discs, failure. I mean, Crowley's characterization of this is certainly more dramatic than the Rider-Waite, but when it's reversed too, it's a really strong resistance to learning a lesson about patience and right? The only timing is divine timing. So early, for instance, you are definitely gonna have a shitty crop. And sometimes you have to do that, right? If you have mold growing, I learned this as a grower. If you have mold growing, especially if you're doing an outdoor, and you can't wait until it's time to harvest because it'll just get worse. it's all about timing. But you also see two Saturns right next to each other, 7 of discs, and then the 8 of cups is Saturn in Pisces. So at the heart of things here is some pretty incredible potential, but it's coming out of having to resign yourself of like the bog of numbness as a result of this failure, right? Whatever it is. Ooh, you can see it so many places. It is coming out in every place imaginable. So before I go too far into it, let's just take a moment here to get ourselves grounded, because this is such a powerful message today. And the messages have been coming through so incredibly strong that it's important that we get grounded before I transmit, obviously, and before you receive, because we want to make sure it's making its way all the way through our energetic system. So I'm going to have everybody take a moment here to draw their attention to where they're making contact with the ground, either on your sits bones, you're sitting on a chair or a cushion, you are standing perhaps, maybe you're sitting on a chair and both your feet and your root are situated towards the ground. So I'll make sure I'm in the right place. So everyone, just take a moment here to draw our attention to this area. Feel the surface area of those parts of you that are making contact. Like really feel into them. And maybe this feeling where there is some asymmetry in either side of your body, right? Maybe one side is making more contact than the other. Maybe you realize that there's some discrepancy there. You just have to notice it. Don't have to fix it. Just be aware. Then you draw your attention down, out the soles of your feet or out of that root chakra as a crystalline root its way through the layers of the earth, through the layers of the crust, like the layers of skin. And making contact with your Earth Star chakra. It's always there. It's always connecting to the planetary grid, always available to ground us to our true ancestry as belonging to Gaia. As we plug into this grid system, we're renewed and rejuvenated and refreshed. We're feeling secure and protected and provided for by something more than just what our minds and the outside world can provide for us. Now that we've made that connection, we're going to take a deep diaphragmatic breath in, diaphragm expanding. And release. Ooh. We say thank you to our energy body. Thank you to Gaia. Thank you to Infinite Creator for allowing us to even have this experience by being. So, all right. And remember, that bowl is tuned to the... Oh, gosh, that's bright. Remember, that bowl is tuned to C major, which is resonant with the root chakra. So it really does help strengthen and get that running. Everything in that system right there spinning and moving freely and more powerfully. So that does connect us to much more easily, allowing us to connect to our Earth Star chakra. So my friends, here we are. Let's start with this reading. Boy, oh boy, this is interesting. This is how I know that there is not only some serious adjustment patterns that are being presented to us, sevens after sevens after sevens in this reading. Got a lot of Saturn involved. We've talked about Saturn in Aquarius. Now it is time itself and the strength and the power of the material matrix and of the human collective that holds the energy that holds it all together. Both of those things are the realm of Saturn, especially in ancient astrology. But it is the function and the process of time itself and the power of nature and the natural matrix unfolding that is really the barometer, right, of what to expect. This is an important position for Saturn right now because it kind of makes it inevitable that it's really causal factors that are involved in this process. And it's about being in the process. The magic is in the process. There's a reason that Satanism is so much connected to Saturn and the materialistic worship. It's because if you can't get past this, if you're trapped here and that you don't believe there's more to you than what you experience in this particular aspect, then yeah, you are going to devote your energy towards that which controls this process. And that is what we are all trying to get away from. That was the point of, well, I would say that was the point of Christ in general, is to bridge the gap between our spirit and the material in order to have unity consciousness again, right? So Saturn is not, it just is, right? It's really what we do and how we approach these things that really makes the difference, right? And there are certain aspects that have done a very, very good job at scaring the living hell out of people, or scaring them into hell, basically, by making some of these symbols, giving them more power than we normally otherwise would, just by having us be afraid of them. So not to say that we shouldn't learn and be aware and be very discerning about where we're giving our energy to. That's important, but there's something to be said for all of these dynamics and archetypal experiences, even if they are embedded in the human construct or psyche, or they reference an actual global civilization that existed before the last reset, which was probably roughly about 6,000 years ago. Anyway, it's important that we are being aware of things for what they are, and rather than allowing our fear or our worship of them to, control our everything that we do and think about and feel, right? So the Seven of Discs, like I said, Crowley is really into the failure or the drama, right? Everything about him was dramatic. We should read his chart someday. That sounds really interesting. I haven't actually taken the time to do that, but I think that would be worth a show. So failure is really about and we've talked about this already, especially because this is where Venus has been in Capricorn. Remember, this is Saturn, but Saturn in Taurus, not so much in Capricorn, in Taurus, of what is the natural course of events that is really part of what Taurus represents, what is fixed earth, right? So the sevens ultimately are that radical fall from paradise, the abyss into the abyss of fate. And in this particular instance, even when it's upright, I mean, the best you can hope for is that you figured something out about patience and divine timing. But ultimately, there are hopes that are deceived and crushed with this type of with the emergence of this card, the Seven of Discs. Reversed, or false successes with no lasting benefit. Let's go over just kind of the basics here. Things have cost more than they have gained, right? So my God, you can look at this on any level you want right now, and you can see it from the very material, not, out there in terms of what we're being presented, in terms of certain medical interventions, right? Once I get on Twitch, I will be able to speak a lot more freely and about these things. But and of course BitChute is a free-for-all, basically, so you have to keep that in mind too. There's a lot of really unfortunate types of mentalities on there anyway, but that's the price, or that is the cost, actually. Speaking of cost, wow, of free exchange of ideas, right? So false successes with no lasting benefit. This is really what this card represents. And the cost has been more than what has been gained. This is the failure of the situation, because Saturn is the wall, right? Once you get to Saturn, it's like, this is just what is. You have to live with it now, and everything that has been put into it. Now, when it's reversed, I mean, you get all of these things. You get a sense of failure, disappointment, really stupid actions, right? Unwise investments. Like you haven't learned anything from this situation a lot of times when this is reversed. Of course, all reversals do indicate an internalized process as well. So you can look at it that way if that seems to resonate with you in a personal way. But regardless, the collective feeling here is a sense of hopes and of being deceived and crushed, right? The fall from paradise, false successes with no lasting benefit, right? Things have cost more than they gained. And this can be, like I said, in so many ways, right? You pick an issue, you pick a subculture, and you're going to see this in some way for the most part. And if you're not experiencing it or even seeing it necessarily, there's probably much more of an internalized experience as this causal factor, some level of failure that we have an opportunity to climb out of if we are willing to acknowledge where we have failed or gone wrong. And Venus was instrumental in this yesterday. And so I think too that this is a big part of the Venus transit from yesterday, because this is our causal factor coming into the moment. When we find ourselves here, here's another Saturn card, the 8 of Cups. Now, indolence is like laziness, right? But more than that, it's like depression laziness, not lazy like Taurus is lazy because it's slow to move, right? It's lazy in the sense of you just lose yourself, because we have Saturn in Pisces in terms of this card. And first decan maybe, I don't remember exactly. Yes, I think it is the first decan of Pisces, which is where Jupiter is right now. The moon is going to move into the first decan of Pisces. We're going to talk about Fomalhaut today. So when Saturn is here, I mean, this is pretty obvious here, right? It's, there's a little bit of water left. Somebody had brought this up, and this has come up with two different clients in two different, completely different situations. They don't know each other, and that, they've different experiences entirely. But something that came up that I think is really, really a big part of this is adrenal fatigue, right? Kidney issues seem to really be strong with this card. And you can kind of see that, right? Like they're just kind of flopped over here of these are lotus flowers, but I'm getting that strong sense, and somebody had brought it up to me and it made me think of something else. And this is just, adrenal fatigue is when you're just going and going and going and you just burn out your adrenals, and your adrenals are glands that sit on top of your kidneys, right? They're very linked in this process. So, and your kidneys hold your life force, right? And it's water-based in terms of Chinese medicine. This is where we hold our fear, like really deep fear, survival fear. And this is how you drain your life energy, is when you're constantly in this state of real fear. This is why PTSD is so damaging and so difficult to really treat with anything more than like seriously spiritual and shamanic healing. I mean, certainly medications, cannabis. Oh my gosh, cannabis is a lifesaver for people with PTSD. Cannabis saved my life as a young person because I had undiagnosed PTSD from being a abuse survivor as a child, right? If it wasn't for cannabis, I don't know what would have happened. I'm sure I can take some guesses. And that depression comes back still. It's been, 30 some years since my, the primary abuse experience. So adrenal fatigue. And when you are really not facing up to the failure, right, of hasty actions or just false successes or all of the things that have not come to bear, even though we have thought that they would, especially in discs, right? You're talking about the material world. We get to this point where it just drains us, right? Adrenal fatigue, right? The waters of our own life force are just barely trickling. And I feel like that a lot of people may be in this state right now for a lot of different reasons, and just burnt, and not even burnt, just like squeezed dry, and it's gray, and it's just not a very good scene. But when it's upright, all you have left is your frustration, and the delusion has lost all attraction, okay? And the incredible opportunity with this card, just like any 8, is that you're so empty that all you can is be filled with essentially the Holy Spirit, or filled with divine source light, right? This is where Reiki comes into effect so strongly. The delusion has lost all the attraction. And you must hear the call to leave the numbness behind, right? You have to abandon the past and make up your mind and open your eyes to the upcoming change. Where's Saturn? In Aquarius. What's the degree of Aquarius? A barometer. Open your eyes to what is coming, because you can feel and you are aware within the collective what is coming. Transformation, right? And many of us are going through our own personal transformations and have been for a really long time. And some people, it is it is growing exponentially or ramping up. Other people are just like in the flow now and are like able to hold so much more in this moment that allows it to these big waves that are coming through, that are rippling through and maybe having a very strong impact on the standard normie, whatever even that means. And I think all of us can probably relate to this in some way. Even if it's not active in our experience right now, we still can feel the heart of it. And this is going to be even more apparent when the moon moves actually into Pisces later today. I think that each of us are going to have a much more personal and intuitive, of course, with the moon, but also incredibly empathic experience of this type of frustration and delusions that have lost all attraction. So we may not feel it ourselves, and maybe something will come up with this moon in Pisces, and it really depends on what's going on for you personally. But this is a very strong collective feel, and you can see the potential here of just being like, enough is enough, and being an empty vessel in which to be your cup to be filled. Oh, man, there's so many incredible synchronicities. We have Archangel Gabriel, right? I mean, this is the cup, right, in a lot of ways. So in terms of our energetic axis, though, it is incredible. And so this is, again, you can see the divide. You can feel the divide. The quote-unquote bifurcation is more obvious than it's ever been. I would even say the trifurcation, although that seems to be coming back into some sort of more intimate relationship with the mystical side of things. That got brought up in a conversation that I'm really excited to keep on going about the Carl Jung reading that I posted from Alan Watt yesterday. The battle between the mysticism and the material. Here we go. The material, again, is Saturn's wheelhouse. The materium, and the fact that that is the basis for everything, is all of our material drives, and that the others, Jung and Freud were besties, right? They were really close, and they had to split. Jung had to split from him because he's like, I can't agree with this. Now, you have to wonder whose motivation it was to base everything on materialism and a sense of the sexual repression as being the baseline of everything. And Jung was like, there's so much more. So you can feel this is becoming stronger and more obvious. And the unification and the alchemy of that situation is really what we're working towards. So when it comes to the vertical axis of our power, right, our energetic axis, bam, the Oracle of Delphi is the first card in the Akashic Tarot, number 1, literally number 1. There's 2 components to this, just like there are 2 components to the material and the mystical, right? The material and the spirit. We're meant to bring these 2 things together. This was the whole point of being created in God's image, for instance, on this planet. Whether you believe in God from the Abrahamic religions, or you have another conception of it, here we are, we're doing this. This is what we're here to do. Just like this oracle, there's 2 points, right? She perceives as the priestess or the oracle, but he is interpreting it. Something to consider as well. Now we are here at this position of drawing our power from this place of incredible psychic awareness. Really, really strong. And where does she receive her insights from? Well, Apollo is the god that the Oracle of Delphi receives insight and psychic phenomena, or psychic perception from. She gets the messages from Apollo, the god of the sun, right? Light, information, right? Vibration from the sun. And this is not about worshiping the sun or, getting into that whole Luciferian aspect. This is about the realization, it wasn't Apollo who was the head of all the gods. It was Zeus, right? Jupiter is considered kind of like a sun. It's a huge gas giant. It wasn't quite dense enough to like ignite its main sequence to become a star. Anyway, this is where the Oracle of Delphi gets her information from, is from Apollo. So there's psychic perception that is really strong. This is where we can really root ourselves and draw our power from. Great insight and psychic power, like I said. We may get images or we may get feelings, right? We may be getting, I hesitate to say downloads, but yes, without knowing how to interpret them, I think that's one way to consider it. This takes practice. That's all there is to it. It just takes practice. Your gut knows. You will know. And then it's all the other things on top of your mind that then try to talk yourself out of it, or that wasn't real, or that didn't mean anything. It just takes practice. Just write it down. Even just notice it and be like, that was a synchronicity, or that was an idea I've never had before. Where did that come from? It just takes practice and a little, just consistency, just like with everything, right? There's no like magic bullet in terms of like, how am I going to have this? Is to work more on clearing out density rather than the idea of raising your vibration, because it naturally, it doesn't raise, it just comes into alignment with a higher vibe that already exists, which is mostly from the planet at this point. But also too, when you clear away those dense pockets that have to do with your own trauma and healing, either this life, past life, childhood, whatever it is, we all have our story. Multidimensional, right? This can be really the starseed reading when you start seeing the more tense aspects with starseed markings, right? Sometimes there are aspects in those experiences that you came here to heal because there's some karma left over from that, if you can believe that. I mean, I think most people can wrap their head around that at this point. So when we clear away that density, this is where the channel gets a lot more clear. And we can really draw our power and our sense of rootedness and stability from the Oracle of Delphi, right? We're going to get psychic insight if we're not already. And I know people are, right? People are having all these kinds of experiences in their life right now. I can't even tell you how many people are like, I'm seeing ships all the time, right? That's just one example. It's very powerful, and we can root ourselves here. We can draw our power from our own psychic insight and awareness. Because what's coming into our conscious awareness, I mean, this is just phenomenal, right? Archangel Gabriel. So we have a number 3. So we have the Trinity, right? This is, and if you notice, we had the Akashic Library, yesterday or 2 days ago, which was number 2. So we have 1, and then there was 2. We're just going into our own history and our own records. Number 3, right? The Divine Messenger, Archangel Gabriel, which is the archangel that is associated with the fixed star Fomalhaut, which is where Jupiter is soon to be in conjunction. So we'll go over all of that in particular when we get to the astrology part. But Archangel Gabriel is the divine messenger, right? He's got 2 sparrows, so there's this duality of peace and prosperity type of thing going on. He's got the crest of Mercury, and the wingspan is just massive. He's got, look at that, he's got the trumpet, so there's, again, sound, vibration, communication, expression. Gabriel, Gabriel shows up a lot in the Bible and in the Quran even, right? It was Gabriel, I believe, that was downloading the information to Muhammad, for instance. Gabriel was the one that also came and said, hey, Jesus is going to be born, right? Or shows up when Jesus is going to be born. I don't have a background in Christianity like other people may. So if I get the story wrong, I will correct myself. This is just for the sake of this conversation right now, that I do understand that Gabriel was instrumental in the divine message of the birth of the Messiah, right? So this is about receiving the message. This is about hearing the message, right? This even might be about speaking the message, or just being being very aware and cognizant of the message, right? The trumpet sounding, the arrival of, Jesus. And if you are into or you track at all, see, I don't push any information away. I listen to it, and I really listen to it. Just because I may not agree or believe in all of it, I still listen to it, and I still read it. And the evangelical Christian community, not the church mainstream Christian community, but the really evangelical Christians, if you track them, they are very consistently reporting their dreams, their own synchronicities about the return of Jesus, and whatever that means. This is a big part of this. This is a big part of it. And I'm not saying like Jesus is coming. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm saying here that we are in a position, especially with Mercury and Aquarius too. We are getting like downloads, like divine message downloads. Maybe we are being fully open to a lot bigger of a message that we may not actually get if we weren't tapped into our own psychic channel and really being much more capable of interpreting those messages, like the priest is interpreting what the oracle has to say. And again, filling our cup, because the cup feels pretty empty right now, I think, collectively. And a part of that too is really having a hard time admitting where we have failed in a lot of different ways, which can lead to this indolence or a sense of just resignation to what is, and losing oneself in the realm of Pisces, right? This, again, it's going to become a lot more of a direct experience when the moves into Pisces today. But then you have this incredible message or messenger that is at the top of our awareness right now. And you can see, things are about to move. They are about to move. The Prince of Wands is the storm of the mind. Now, this is Cancer to Leo in terms of the zodiac. Remember, Cancer as a tarot, the Chariot, right? And so he's got a chariot of fire. He's being pulled by a lion, right? There's your Leo, right? There's your year of the tiger as well. And the Prince is the air quality, the air of the mind. So the first impression here of this individual, whoever they are, this could be you, this could be somebody in your life, this could be an actual public figure. First impression is that of a hot storm filled with action. It's very impulsive. Sometimes this individual lacks patience because they want it now. Delays can provoke outbursts, right? But the upside of this individual is endless courage, endless tenacity, the ability to fight far superior forces. That is something that is really important too. Now, this individual being the Prince and having a very strong mercurial and air element can be a juggler, can be a trickster, right? They're using the air element as the means to further themselves. There's the movement right there. It is the fire that the fire and the heat warms the air and the air rises. And this is how you get jet streams and things like this. So sometimes the storms move forward too fast to recognize the ruins left behind. These are all the potentials here because we are talking about individual, personified people when you get these court cards. So it's swift and strong. So there's going to be movement either on our own part, right? Perhaps, like I said, a public figure, perhaps people in general in certain areas, they're going to start moving, right? Things are going to happen and it's going to come out of the combination of an experience in our own consciousness of oh shit, this did not pan out the way that I wanted it to, and then feeling completely drained, completely having adrenal fatigue. You can feel and this is, in fact, a very strong tactic, is to get people to this point in order to offer them their dialectical solution. Haha. Well, keep in mind here that we have this really strong connection, not only to our own discernment, intuition, and psychic channel, but it's allowing us to be open to the true message, the true divine message, right? And that is going to be part of our own ascension, right? The heron is standing in your own power, regardless of judgment. So that's the other thing. It may not be a popular message either, but what I do see is that there's going to be movement and action and really strong and swift, right? It's just it's just going to show up on the scene and be like, I'm taking over this bitch, right? Now, I don't know what that's going to look like. That can be certainly expressed in a lot of different ways, but it's pretty obvious that something's about to happen, right? And we can feel that, right? Now, when this happens, who knows, right? But this is leading into very impulsive but courageous personification, right? That we can all really find some empowerment within. When we look at our guidance points, speaking of action, right? Got the Buddha prepares reverse like it is here, this time for action, right? Your preparation time now over, and you have done the work, and you step out into action, and you're able to influence others because you have done the inner work. So this is really this reading is for a lot for us as starseeds and light workers, because it's going to be the outward expression of the majority of people who are just waking up faster and faster, and this is part of it. This right here is a big part of that process, and then you see like really swift waking up and action, right? The Buddha prepares, right? The Buddha prepares is a pretty good indication that you come out of your inner prep and it's time to walk in ministry in the world, whatever that is, right? Because that's what the Buddha was doing. That's what Jesus was doing, right? They walked in ministry. They came out of their internalized meditative prayer state. They've done their inner work. You can even argue that this was the time, obviously this is the time that Siddhartha or the Buddha was under the Bodhi tree, right? Like you can even see that here, and people surrounding that individual as well in their own way. Or Jesus, spent a lot of time traveling the world and studying a variety of different spiritual and cultural, stuff. The different religions, different spiritual practices, different culture, different historical perspectives, right? He traveled a lot. Joseph of Arimathea was like one of the primary merchants and traders of tin in the entire civilized world at that point, and that was his uncle, right? He took him everywhere. So you can also see it as that time of preparation for like the first, portion of his, adult childhood into adult life was this preparation. Now it's time for action. And this is where the magic is in the process, my friends, because it's in the process of deepening this channel. It's in the process of clarifying this channel. It's in the process of actually interpreting as well what it is that we are perceiving that is the magic. It's not so much what comes out the other side, because we live in a dynamic universe that never is static. And if it is, it's not for very long. And so it's always in the process. So this really does imply action on this part in particular. And the unicorn is the higher octave of the Capricornian system. Right, the unicorn, the singular focus, the purity and the unification and the magic, right? This is a magical creature. And so this is about indulging your creative side, your imaginative side, your magical side. The magic is in the process. You have to be willing to participate in whatever your artistic expression comes through, right? It doesn't really matter, right? That's a lot of that fifth house energy. What is that? Where's your passion ignited? And what do you create from your own authenticity? This is eventually, if you are devoted to the highest expression of that, when you get from the 5th to the 10th house, this is your unicorn, right? This is what you have been participating in creating as a larger structure. And so again, the magic is in the process. It's not outside of the process. It's not the end goal. It is the process of doing it. So whatever it is, right? Whatever your process is, whatever that 5th house is for you, I would say, this is where, you can indulge that more in order to really align with the most divine version of the material matrix that we want to have in place, right? Again, time for action. But this, again, has a lot to do with, when you're in that zone, this is where you're getting those insights. This is where you're perceiving these messages, and interpreting them is something that comes, I think, a little bit later. But in the moment of channeling this is where the unicorn really comes in. This is very powerful, man. Very powerful. Now, when it comes to the message and Archangel Gabriel, the blue heron, make a stand for what you believe in and do what feels right in spite of judgment from others. Trust your deepest sense of knowing. I mean, that's the thing. When you're in the flow and you are participating in your own version of what magic is, when you're expressing your authenticity, when your passion is ignited and it's flowing through you, right? And you are in that magical process, your Kundalini is flowing and moving, and not so much just moving up. It's like an implosion experience. And that's very much connected to Dan Winter. I'll start posting that stuff on Telegram because he's the one that I know of, at least, that is actually addressing the science of alchemy and spiritual science, like from an electrical engineer's perspective. And it's all about phase conjugation. And it's important to understand what that means, because that is like the crossover between the material world and energetic magic. And phase conjugation, the phase of the woo, is able to change shape based on our own energetics. But anyway, that's something I can't get into right now. So trust your deepest sense of knowing. Be in alignment with what spirit wants from you, not what other people want, in order for them to feel comfortable, right? This is something we've been working with for the last 2 years now. And depending on like the messaging that is getting brought forward, this again is going to bring these same things up, because you can see it anytime people start diverting or breaking loose from a script that has gotten very cult-like in certain situations. There's always kind of like this, oh no, don't do that, or there's something wrong with you, or you're just blah 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 blah, right? It's more and more. And the more you stand in your own beliefs and the more that you stand in truth, despite wading through other people's bullshit or how they feel about it. Again, Moon in Pisces is going to make this really hard to avoid. But the more that you do that, I mean, not only are you participating in your own actual ascension process, 7 of Keys, right? And turning that over. This is really our opportunity to turn this over, is realizing that with effort and with all the right tools and equipment, we each have the opportunity to make this journey. Remember where Pluto is right now. Pluto is in 27 degrees of Capricorn, the pilgrimage up the mountain. This is how we transform. And we transform by maybe finding our own pathway up the mountain, right? That is not what has been tread before. Maybe we have to find a new pathway. And I would argue that's a big part of Pluto in this degree of Capricorn. That's my personal read on it, right? Other people may have different reads on it. But when you are able to stand in your power and really turn this around through your own process, and this is where the conscious awareness is. This is where we are focusing our attention. This is where we can release this power. It has a lot to do with being open to the message. And maybe you got to get to the top of the mountain to get enough silence to really hear the voice of God, for instance, right? So there's a lot of different ways that we can look at this, but this is very powerful reading today. I think things are going to start moving very quickly. I don't know when, but this is a pretty good indication that people have had enough. Now, when you are in adrenal failure, like let's take the rest of this surrounding aspect out of the picture and you just look at this horizontal consciousness, you can see how this can go very, very wrong very quickly. Right? When people are just drained and then they just lash out. This is like rioting. Okay? So keep in mind that everything around this is for us to stay in our power as these things are unfolding as they are meant to, right? This is cause and effect, right? And I think that this is ultimately going to be, but the potential for destruction is very large, but also the potential for incredible tenacity and courage is also equally as available. So really, really powerful, my friends. So we'll move into today's astrology, of course, and I'm going to check in with the stream here real quick because there's a lot of awesome comments here. That's a great idea. I want to hear the experience as well. Yeah, let's talk about it on Telegram, guys. Grand Rising, happy hump day, Meg. Yes, it is Wednesday. It is hump day. I don't mind. I know, like I'm like a 9 to 5 or a 7 to 3, I guess is probably more accurate in my week. And I take my weekends, but really it's just, it doesn't even affect me anymore because I don't work for anybody. I work for you guys, and that is it, right? And I work for my mission on this planet. But as far as like my time being given to anybody else as a result of a paycheck, I don't have to do that shit no more. Now, I've taken a big risk, right? I've taken a big financial risk doing this, and there's nothing like this Lyran aspect to really test my faith. You remember that scene in not the last Indiana Jones movie, that was a travesty. But do you remember the scene in the Last Crusade where he's going through the tests, right, to get to the Holy Grail, and the last one is the bridge, and you have to take the leap of faith? Yeah, that's I think a lot, and Lyran starseeds, they're built for that, and that's something that I think a lot of us could stand to consider these days. So 100% supportive of cannabis for PTSD for sure. I lost track of what day it is anymore. See, Paige, the only reason I pay attention is because my spouse pays attention, because he is way into that, unfortunately, into the working for the weekend still. It won't be much, not much longer him at all. See, it's all about the timing. And when you know your chart and you pay attention to what's going on, you can at least get an idea of the timing of things. So let's get into the astrology, my friends, and then, see what this day holds for us in terms of the cosmos. Oh, that's not what I wanted to show you, but we will get to that. Believe me, we will get to that. All right, friends, here we are. I'm going to do this. There we go. So let's go to right now just for a moment. Yeah, you can see that the moon is at 25 to 26 degrees Aquarius. This is coming into a direct sextile any minute now with asteroid Vesta, who is sitting at the galactic center right now. Asteroid Vesta, or Hestia, the goddess Hestia, the flame of the hearth flame, the flame that holds it together, right? The flame that is the catalyst of all life, right? The cooking fire, the fire that keeps us all warm, the fire that is, the eternal flame, right? You could even take it so far as this is the flame that we take for the funeral pyre, right? These types of things, fire, 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 fire. And this is a big connection to ultimately where that reading ended up with the Prince of Wands, the air of fire, right? The fire. This was the essence of the new moon for this month, right? The letting it burn. We're still in this process, and we're still in the first lunar quarter. We haven't even gotten to our first quarter square yet, which will happen, I believe, on the 9th, right? Where the moon will be in Aries at that point. So speaking of fire, oh, wow. It's going to boil our kettle. That's usually what happens with a moon in Aries. So as we're finishing up here with the moon in Aquarius, we still have our Mercury in Aquarius right now, moving direct. We still have the sun in conjunction with Vega right now. This is still incredibly powerful. Moving us more into the importance, I would say, of the physical nature of the Lyran starseed traits and Capricorn in general. Remember, Capricorn is cardinal earth, right? Material reality, right? We have to be we have to be able to manage and balance the intellectual activity and the health of the body. And so exercise and physical activity is really important to the Lyran starseed in particular. They're driven to it. So athletes, really good athletes, and people who find themselves drawn towards athleticism in general, you tend to be Lyran starseeds. People who really like manual labor, and I know that sounds weird, but I am one of those people. I love to do landscaping and gardening and just like schlepping heavy things around my property. And when I was a grower, I loved that. And landscaping, I loved that. It's about using the body though. And when your job is to be a manual labor, you get fit pretty quickly. So this is, again, the Lyran starseed signature, and the sun is now moving kind of away from the responsibility aspect for just a moment and moving into this like, hey, you guys still take care of the physical body if you wanted to actually do any work in order to keep providing and to maintain the structural integrity of this institution. So it's important that we're managing our health, our wellness, and the larger structure of our physicality. And so if you take some time today, I would say, for me, I'm going right out into the woods as soon as this is over. And I need, some really good communal time out in nature, walking a couple miles, so whatever it is you need to do. But the Lyran aspect is still very, very strong as well. And there's actually a very specific transit today that I'm going to bring up to show you how much it's in play still. So let's look at the moon first, because I think just getting an idea of what that's going to look like is important, and then we'll move over to some of these bigger transits that are Lyran based. So we see that the moon is moving through the last couple degrees of Aquarius right now, and it's moving. So it's really going to it's going to be essentially void of course until it moves into Pisces. And the first thing it's going to do is have this square, or create a T-square. You don't see it here because there should be another line to the south node at 0 degrees Sagittarius, is a T-square with her own nodal axis, the moon, at 0 degrees Pisces. This is like, in galactic astrology, it's my understanding, because the way that I read my starseed readings and the way that the starseed hotline does it is a little bit different. And I try to incorporate what they do as well into my own personal. I mean, I really just like taught myself and created my own protocol in a lot based on other protocols, especially the starseed hotline. But 0 degrees oftentimes is this crack between worlds, is the way they've described it in galactic astrology. So it is like that. It's very shamanic, and it very much is something that a lot of us are experiencing right now, is straddling the material and the spiritual, or the material and the mystical, right? And the 0 degrees in the chart really speaks to that in a natal chart, for instance. So when we see it here, along with the moon in Pisces, along her own nodal axis, all this mutable energy, right? Mutable is malleable. Sagittarius, Gemini, Pisces, and Virgo, all mutable energy. It implies that there is change and adaptability, and it's malleable, right? Now when we have the moon and our nodal axis, this mutable T-square, this moment here is an opportunity where we can easily, especially with Pisces, we can easily kind of like morph ourselves into where we actually want to be in relation to the tension that we feel in this T-square. So the nodes are now officially in I can't wait to do this report. I'm very close now, because we have Alcyon and we have 0 degrees Sagittarius, which is also in conjunction with Alpha Centauri, which is our closest galactic neighbor at 4.5 light years away, in fixed star Ptolemy. So I want to be able to talk more about these things, not right now, but and then 0 degrees Pisces, of course, is the marketplace, right? It is the full experience of everything in a communal situation, and the interaction with each other. That's a big part of the Pisces archetype, is that it's not only the mental and intellectual understanding that all is one, it's the experience of being fully in it. And it's most categorized or symbolized as like the farmer's market or the vendor's market, right? Or the marketplace, a public market. We're all coming to bring what we have gathered and cultivated and sown. We're all bringing it to the market. And so with the nodal axis, we're talking about something much deeper in terms of the soul's journey. The moon is really how our psyche and our individual consciousness now in this lifetime feels, our own internal feeling-based landscape is referenced by the moon. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't feel into other timelines. You can't feel into other multidimensional experiences. We do it all the time. We do it in our dreams all the time. But the nodal axis of the moon is way more about the soul's urge in a particular direction in order to grow and evolve. And so when you have a T-square like this at this very mutable and the crack between worlds, there is an opportunity to realign ourselves. And Barb had said it yesterday on the chat, and it was just so perfect. And this is really exemplifying the very essence of this. So while we may feel ourselves coming into full experience of the entire human and natural collective, it's not even human, it's just the entire experience of being here, and at all levels, right, all experiences, and just being part of it and feeling like we're part of it. The tension here with both ends of the nodal axis has a lot to do with a trajectory that still has to do with the mind and the higher mind and understanding. And so while we feel right now a personal kind of urge to just kind of blend in and be part of what's happening, the square to the nodal axis is, remember, don't lose entirely the trajectory of our soul's karmic journey right now, which right now is, especially with the North Node or Rahu at the 0 degrees of Gemini, is the glass bottom boat, right? There's a translucent but very clear barrier of our consciousness that allows us to interface and see the full range of the collective unconscious without being submerged in it. Now you can see now why having the moon in Pisces saying, yeah, completely submerge yourself in it can lead to this T-square. But at the same time, it is the point of the T-square that allows you to, I would say, to maximize the potential energy of a balanced opposition, right? To find your fulcrum. And your fulcrum that is coming from 0 degrees Sag, which is like the spark of meaning, to 0 degrees Gemini, which is just fully open consciousness to what is. There's something here that is important about allowing ourselves maybe to sink in. Do you remember in The Matrix? I know I've been talking about it a lot, but this is just what came to mind because I was just like, how? Or Through the Looking Glass, right? Same thing. You like the moon is like allowing that part of ourselves to kind of like push through the mirror and be like, oh, that's not even solid, right? But we're not physically doing that. This seems something much more intuitive of being able to push past that barrier. Whereas at a soul level, it's really, we want to not totally submerge ourselves. Not yet. But each of us, I think, is going to have that experience of like, there is no separation between me, this boat, and the bottom of the ocean, right? So it's a momentary experience. It's not going to last because the moon then moves right into conjunction with Jupiter, which is like, okay, well, now what are my tools that I've been endowed with that are going to allow me to hide? Right? Because that's where Jupiter is. 2nd degree of Pisces is the squirrel hiding. Tiny little squirrel. It's not a predator, right? It's always prey, and it is like having to gather in everything for the winter and hide from people who are hunting it. So when the moon and Jupiter come, oftentimes there is a very, very generally an expansion of our own emotions or our feelings about something, because Jupiter, that's what Jupiter tends to do, especially in Pisces. It's expansion into a infinite space of the Akash or the morphogenic field or the quantum experience, right? But again, this has a lot to do with, there may be an expansion of the field and our own emotions, but there's also an expansion in terms of our protection in this realm too. It's again, our emotions need some measure of, see, it goes back to this North Node, I feel like, really strongly. There needs to be some measure of separation, and Jupiter at the second degree of Pisces, whatever it is for us, it's either an invisibility cloak or some sort of shield, or hey, there's this little hole in the tree that you can go hide in. Either way, emotionally, intuitively, right? As we're now embarking on an entire emotional reality of being fully submerged in everybody else's feels, basically. For the most part, this connection to Jupiter is like, okay, you can do that, but you also, here are your tools, or here is, I'm a benefactor, right? I'm going to endow you with these particular things that are going to allow you to expand yourself without actually being seen, right? By those who you don't want to see you. This seems really important because there's a tendency right now, I think, to be like, right out there and still blah, 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 blah. And that's important too, to be visible. But right now, it seems like there's something to be said for just sitting back and watching what's happening. Just sit back and watch what's happening, right? You don't want to get pulled into the feeling and the experience of that adrenal failure or those kidneys or whatever, right? That 8 of Cups, even though other people are going to be having that experience, okay? Sit back and watch. Or allow the invisibility cloak to, give you a perspective that's just like, I'm just going to sit here and and I'm not saying that you should sit here and do nothing. It's the fact that when you're kind of blocked, it's not even blocked, when you are shielded in some way from the experience of everybody else's feels, boy, that channel is going to get so much deeper and so much stronger, and you're really going to get into the actual messages that you want to receive, that are going to be a connection to the divine, more than connecting to all of the propaganda or all of the feelings that happen with a moon in Pisces. So there's not, this is, by the end of today. So there's not much going on in terms of there's not a ton of transits. It's just the moon's going to finish up her transit of Aquarius over the course of the day, and then by the end of today, as you can see, is then going to move into Pisces. So pay attention to how you're feeling leading up to this point, and track maybe what it is that starts to become much more intense feeling, or you may start to pick up on things that aren't really yours, and just kind of reflect back on this moment here of okay, yeah, I'm all of a sudden I'm just like, what is this? And then realizing but I know this isn't me. And then you realize who you are. And then when you do that, then you open up to the incredible downloads that you could possibly be receiving. So that's the moon transit. So another Lyran aspect that I want to talk about that actually I've neglected to, just because, you don't want to pull all of, you don't want to reveal everything right away, is that, where Neptune has been sitting is actually a very strong Lyran starseed marking. It's been sitting here this whole time. And I'm sure I brought it up at some point, but I haven't spent a lot of time addressing it. But now it seems much more relevant because Venus today, look at this, in a sextile to Neptune. So a Capricorn Pisces sextile, right? 60-degree angle. This is where they form that, Star of David, right? Where you have the one triangle that's upright and the other that is superimposed and the point is down. And this represents the actual process of alchemy, right? The 6th house in itself, right? The actual work of or the process. The magic is in the process. And remember that 6th house is Virgo. Virgo is opposite Pisces, right? So it's in the process itself where the magic is happening. And then, so that is what a sextile is the process. It's a harmonious process, but you have to participate. So Venus is in her retrograde, still in conjunction with the Lyran starseed markings. This is much more about the relay race. We've talked about this before, about getting into a mindset of what it is that we're doing as a team, and what are we contributing to as a whole? How do we capitalize off of all of our own personalized training and effort? And it's dynamic, right? Because it's a relay. So we're going and going and going. We pass off the baton, and we're each doing that in order to reach a larger goal that includes all of us. And Venus in her retrograde, of course, it's just this inventory. What is valuable about this? Who's valuable to me in this situation? What are my responsibilities here? What wisdom can I really gather within myself in these relationships and what they mean? In a sextile to Neptune, these are huge Lyran starseed activations because Neptune's been sitting at this degree now for weeks on end. And it really is like, do we have the ability to really trust ourselves in the process of surrendering to the woo, as it were? Or, are we just like kind of giving ourselves over? And that's a really strong part of the Pisces archetype, because what you end up doing is either becoming possessed, you end up becoming addicted, and escapism, fanaticism, all of these things. Well, I'd say fantasy, not so much fanaticism. Martyrdom, right? Overdoses happen a lot in this kind of realm, right? Because you give in to the fantasy and you give yourself over, and not in a way that's to the highest source. You're giving it over to your, something else. And so having Neptune here in this Lyran starseed position the Lyran starseeds have been instrumental in being able to hold their own power in the midst of surrendering to the Great Spirit, to the woo, to the source, whatever. And that's not to degrade any of those things. It's just, I can't cover everybody's personal conception of their relationship with God, and nor do I want to, because I think that's between you, yourself, and God, and however you conceptualize that. But this sextile is this moment here where we're really thinking and then feeling and being sensitive, because that's Venus, very sensitive to who are the people that we're in this relay race with, and what is it that we're actually working towards. And we can activate and invest that into this position of not only just working towards some sort of material goal, which is very much part of it, but where we invest this is into working towards a spiritual goal that we have to give up to the universe. And only a real strong soul is able to do that without any real doubt. And of course, everybody has doubt, everybody has doubt. And that's why, it's important to take time away and take time away or alone with source, and in order to really understand that. But this particular transit is really about the people, and the people that matter to us, and the people that we are choosing to be engaged with. So just keep in mind that when she comes retrograde or direct, she's going to pass over maybe the next degree, possibly, but it's still going to be very Lyran. So this is just a moment where we reflect on this, like really deeply reflect on it, because when Venus is direct and comes back over right after her conjunction with Mars at 16 to Capricorn, then she's going to come forward and have this sextile again with Neptune. And so it's going to be even more activated. So right now, this is to think and take that deep inventory. And it doesn't have to necessarily be people, although Venus is very much about the relationship aspect of value, the relationships that are valuable, the people in our lives, the projects we're engaged with, all kinds of things. But it's about what we're doing together and the value of that. And so is it something that you want to invest into your spiritual surrender, right? Into the highest order? Because Neptune is going to make it very difficult for all of us, and has been for years now, of what's the difference between us and the woo. There hasn't been much, right? And so you've had to learn to swim. And so we want to take into consideration who it is, what we are engaged in terms of value or assets or tradition and heritage. That's a very Venus type of thing too, where we come from. Very strong, very, very strong. Like, I've just been getting so much activation in the last couple of days that it's been pretty significant. So Mars is at 17 degrees Sagittarius. This is about rebirth all day long. And here's our Prince of Wands. Geez. just acting in accordance to rebirth, like just going for it, swift, courageous, and it's about a cultural rebirth. And so Mars is going to push that forward in some way, I feel like, very strongly today. And let's see what else is going on. And, the only thing else that's in Gemini right now, which I think is interesting, is Black Moon Lilith. And she's over here in retrograde in 22 degrees Gemini. 22 degrees Gemini. 22. 22. Even if that's not the actual year that we're in, because it's probably not at this point, who knows, but there's something about the 2, the 22, the 222 that is a numerological activation, especially of Gemini energy. And we just want to enjoy these organic processes and emotional drives of duality and coming together. Remember, Gemini in the tarot is the lovers, right? And so there's something natural that draws us together, right? Opposites attract, just like opposite charge comes together. It attracts, like in magnetism. We want to enjoy this process, right? And Lilith, again, especially in her retrograde, is something so primal and so deep that we don't even realize that we're connected to it. And the best way to connect to what Lilith connects us to is through your Earth Star chakra, to the planetary grid, to where you actually belong in terms of your material sense of self, which is Gaia, right? But a lot of times we push Lilith away, and you can see that in many different types of traditions, because what she represented was something much deeper and much more primal and original than maybe what we would like. And so we tend to suppress those parts of ourselves, and then they come back with a vengeance anyway. So might as well be aware of Lilith and the fact that there is this deep primal urge to really just enjoy and do the dance, right? It's about doing the dance, either within you in your own polarity or outside of you, as opposed to fighting it, right? So that's something I wanted to bring up as well. And I think that really does cover it for today. So in terms of tomorrow, since I'm not doing a transmission, I'll tell you there's one major transit tomorrow. And that's when the moon comes into a sextile with Uranus, right? And so that's in terms of a major transit. Of course, Mercury is going to move forward. Mars is moving forward. The sun's going to move forward. And this is actually the degree that Mars and Venus will come into a conjunction in February, is at 16 to 17 degrees. And so there will be I feel like a release, right? A release from our own repression, right? Shedding some sort of skin. So that will be illuminated in some way. And then you have the moon in Pisces, 11 degrees Pisces, and again, in another sextile to Uranus and in Taurus. And so again, this ability to really realign ourselves because of our malleability of our own emotional state, and being able to feel into something, to feel into the whole field as opposed to just our own personal feelings. Hold on one second. I want to read the Sabian symbol just to have it, right? And then that way I'll feel like some completion and won't feel any loose ends for tomorrow, right? Oh, here it is. Oh, and this is like the perfect, this is so perfect. This is the perfect transition into talking about Fomalhaut real quick. So men, 11 degrees Pisces, men traveling a narrow path seeking illumination, right? The eye of the needle, sextile to Uranus in Taurus. Oh my gosh. Right? It is a narrow path. And speaking of a narrow path, let's actually look at Fomalhaut, because it is very much about a narrow path in a different way. So when we go back to it, Fomalhaut is, well, if it wants to. So the moon is going to cross Fomalhaut tomorrow morning, very late tonight. It's between 3 and 4 degrees of Pisces. So when you round up for the Sabian symbol, what you find is 4 degrees of Pisces is another narrow path. It's an isthmus. isthmus. It's an isthmus, right? And if you know what an isthmus is, it's this tiny little it's this tiny little narrow channel on land that's surrounded by water. And a lot of times what they'll do is, connect to like resort towns because because they have an ocean, or a bay, for instance, right? There's a couple different places I can think about that there's isthmus is relevant. And it's the idea that you're surrounded by the collective unconscious as the ocean. And then you have this isthmus that is connecting these 2 points, and these 2 points are places where people want to be, and it's places where they congregate, and they are traveling back and forth. And so it's a very concentrated but very it's meant to be a very fluid flow between these 2 points, kind of like your toroidal field in some ways, that then creates, you have the movement through your vertical axis. But it's also too about the narrow path, the narrow path of connection with each other in a way that is got commerce and connection and socialness, surrounded by the ocean of the collective unconscious. So that is what Fomalhaut, in terms of its position in the Sabian symbol. So when we go to some imagery here that I'm going to show you, we see here that where is Fomalhaut? Well, Fomalhaut is in the nose of this particular constellation. So it looks like it's Pisces, but it's not. It's Piscis Austrinus. It is a different constellation that is much more visible in the southern hemisphere, right? And it's not Pisces, the 2 fish. That's a different constellation. This is just one fish, Piscis. Fomalhaut was it marked the winter solstice, right? Thousands of years ago, right around the time probably that we find that Thuban, or Alpha Draconis, was our North Star. Fomalhaut was marking the winter solstice, or the December solstice, I guess you could say, and is only this constellation is really only visible in the southern hemisphere for the most part. I'm sure different times of the year you'll be able to see Fomalhaut. So Fomalhaut is one of the main. Is one of the 4 royal fixed stars, and is in relationship to Archangel Gabriel, right? So if we take some time here to go over what that really means and stands for, I popped over to the chat real quick and I saw something about Castor and Pollux, and oh boy, we have so much. It's must be my lucky day. Oh my God, that's awesome. We have some things to talk about with Castor and Pollux and Gemini. Wow. That's going to be more of a Telegram chat and maybe a show for the future. So when we talk about, though, of Fomalhaut and its connection to Archangel Gabriel, I'm going to share some things that come up with the fixed star astrology, or ancient astrology. So the star itself is at the nose of this fish, the Piscis Austrinus, and it's the largest star in this constellation. And so it's, like I said, it was near the winter solstice. So it's a royal star and Archangel Gabriel. So I'm just kind of going through some notes here. And so Fomalhaut was considered, he connected to Gabriel, and as I said, was, gave the message of the birth of Jesus. And so now that we're in this new stage of human spiritual evolution, it seems to have gained a little bit more standing than maybe the original, which was Regulus, right? Which was connected the sign of Leo, and much more of a kingly type of thing. So there isn't like a ton that I found in my personal resources about fixed stars, about Fomalhaut, and this particular constellation. So I mean, it says that there's, when you're talking about Ptolemy, for instance, and the Ptolemaic ancient astrology, then you're looking at the nature of Venus and Mercury, which makes sense. You have you have Mercury because of the communication. So there's a lot of idealism and psychicness. Look at that, and lovable and refined and intelligent, all of these things that are connected to Fomalhaut in terms of ancient astrology. And it's said to be very fortunate and powerful, but there's also a whole different side to this, that it could be very malevolent in itself, because it's about a change from material to spiritual form of expression, right? Here is the dichotomy again, or the dialectic of materialism and mysticism that is really going to start coming more and more and more to the surface. Like so much of the outside of what is being shown to us or we're experiencing, and all of the different things, social, political, or economy, it's all going to boil down to eventually to this dichotomy itself, the material and the mystical or spiritual. And so Fomalhaut really kind of signals this shift to a spiritual form of expression, right? And does this mean that we give up our material form? Well, some people, especially in like the New Age community, that is what they are kind of going for. Like they want to leave the third dimension. They want to go into some sort of spiritual or energetic higher dimensional space. But if you're a starseed, like you've already done that. That's the idea, that you came here for this mission in order to have many lifetimes here. Many starseeds have done this, not just starseed lineages, but Earth as well. We've done it a lot of times. So, and that's not to, you have to come to these conclusions on your own. But what I'm showing you is the language that is spelling out the story. And then how we align with that is up to our own free will, right? So here is this shift from material to spiritual forms of expression. And so there's a lot here that's very mercurial, right? And to stimulate mental capabilities and stuff like that. So when it's in conjunction, first we'll kind of explore just a little bit how it's in conjunction with the moon. So it's talking about, like, if you have it in your natal chart, for instance, and the moon will meet Fomalhaut this evening into tomorrow morning. Secret business, causing much trouble and enmity, but eventual gain after many difficulties. The separation is more benefic than the application. Ooh, that sounds really reminiscent of some things we just talked about, especially in the reading. Now, when it comes to Jupiter, in conjunction with Fomalhaut. Now, this is in the natal chart, so transiting it may not have exactly the same thing, but what we're going to talk about here is sympathetic, charitable, honors in the church, Freemasonry, or secret societies. Oh, that's interesting. So Jupiter is going to come into a conjunction with Fomalhaut and start bringing some of these things up to the surface, perhaps. Now, does that mean, and now there's a lot of secrecy, and that's part of the Piscean energy too, is that, it's more with Scorpio, but sometimes you don't know what the difference between the truth and a lie is in the Pisces realm, because it's all the same energy. It's all coming from the same place. It's what we do with it. So these are some of the fixed star astrology references to our friend Fomalhaut. Now I want to bring it around here, and this is where we'll end, to a particular aspect in the Bible. And the reason this came up is because I've been reading this book by Chan Thomas, which was actually banned or was classified by the CIA for a very long time. And it's called The Story of Adam and Eve. And it's really about the cyclical deluge that is becoming more and more obvious in terms of the scientific community. And if you're following Suspicious Observers, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, and how the story of Adam and Eve and the Noah flood were two separate instances of this cyclical magnetic excursion that caused massive flooding across the whole planet. So, and in reading that, they was giving a different interpretation of a very specific thing, which is the serpent kind of wrapped around, and then Eve with the heel, right? Putting her heel on the serpent's head and bruising the heel, but then also squashing the serpent. And there was a different interpretation in that book to that story. But when I saw that Fomalhaut is actually rules the right heel in medical or, anatomical astrology, I was like, oh, there's a connection here, especially with Archangel Gabriel being involved, because what that symbolizes in the biblical biblical context is something called, as you see here, the protevangelium, right? And what it means, this particular passage in the Bible, which is about, I will put enmity. Oh, there's that word again with Fomalhaut, enmity between thee and the woman, meaning the serpent, and between thy seed and her seed. And her seed technically is the seed that eventually leads to Jesus, if you follow the bloodline, right? And it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Or so the seed of Eve bruises his heel by squashing the serpent or Satan, right? And it's in Genesis 3:15. It's a pretty standard passage, and it's considered the protevangelium. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, because it is this God's statement to the serpent is really the first glimmer of the gospel, as you'll see on Wikipedia, right? This is the first glimmer of the gospel. What is to come, right? That there will be a resolution to the original fall, right? Which was the tempting of Eve by the serpent. And I'm not here to get into what I necessarily believe about that story. What I'm showing you here is that the heel, the bruising of the heel, and how that's connected to Fomalhaut. Archangel Gabriel was the one that gave the message of the birth of Jesus, and the glimmer of the gospel, really, a lot of what I've researched is that the protevangelium is the first prophecy by God itself of the birth of the Christ, of Jesus, that will come and crush the serpent, right? And so there's just too many of these connections, especially with Archangel Gabriel coming out in the reading and Fomalhaut being involved, that there's something to this in terms of this cycle coming back around, and the seed of the original woman, so to speak, right? At least in this version of our history, ultimately was able to sacrifice himself in the attempt to crush the impact of Satan, or just a strictly material version of reality, right? Based strictly on materialism. I think that's really what it comes down to. And when you become aware of the knowledge of good and evil, if you become awake to duality, if your consciousness is raised either by genetic manipulation or some other aspect of intervention, who knows, you realize that there is a difference between materialism and your spirit. And in fact, I think that the fear of death became much more as a result of this awareness of our material reality. And whether or not this is, it doesn't matter how, what you really think here or what you believe. That's up, like I said, that's between you, yourself, and the Great Spirit, right? I'm not here to get in the middle of that. What I am showing you all these connections, that we are entering a time where I think that we're going to find the bruising of the heel means that, yeah, there will be some damage to that part as we crush out the strictly materialist version of reality, but it's coming back around to something more profound and a more pure and lucid message that's coming through. And when you have the Seven of Discs as failure, Saturn and Taurus, I mean, that is kind of the failure of the material reality when you're not in alignment with your own spirit. And if you're in alignment with your own spirit, then timing is something that you are able to access in terms of the material realm. So there is a lot of interesting connections. So I encourage you to look these things up for yourself and do the research and let us know what you think, right? This Telegram chat, I feel like has the potential to really go somewhere. So I'm gonna let's see here. And check in with the chat one more time before I we depart for the day, just a reminder that there is not going to be a transmission tomorrow. So that's why I went a little over today. So thank you for sticking around and being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you so very much. If you are interested in a reading, energy work, or if you just want to get more information, everything you need is in the description box below. You can also stick around after this video and get more information on how to support this work on Subscribestar, and to just access the website for Catalyst Energies. So I love you guys. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great day. Have a blessed day. Let me know how you're doing. I'll see you on Telegram throughout the day. I'll be posting some things that I've been watching or reading, and just like, let's get into the conversation. I think this is where a lot of work can really happen. So love you guys. I will see you on Friday for the astrology report. Keep an eye out for the astrology forecast for your sign. And yeah, what else is there to say? I love you. I'll see you Friday. See you Friday. Take care now. Bye.